Welcome back to Maturation 101. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Heidelberg. Today we're going to talk about, we've got a situation here. In the first episode or video, I talked a little bit about me and the statement of the problem that we have. The statement of the problem we have is a maturity gap between men and women. And I'm going to keep it as real as I can, folks. Sometimes I might use some interesting language. But the reality is that, unfortunately for us guys, they're ahead of us. They've already got a plan, early 20s, even late teens, where they're going to be at this age, what they're going to do there. Guys, man, we're thinking about where we going at next week, who we trying to holler at, all these different things. And unfortunately, that does not lend itself to long-term planning. And if you don't have both parents, it's hard. A lot of people, whether you're a person of color or not, it's an American situation. We're going to have to learn how to coach folks up. Let me say this for people, no matter what your age is, we all need coaches. I'll help you online, but you've got to identify people who are doing what you want to do and let them coach you. The problem with some of us, young and old, I see it in the classroom, young, but, oh, you can't tell me nothing. You're my mom or my dad, and people can't tell you anything. Well, my class, we get past that because we do group intervention, and I do it as well. But the bottom line is that we have to be willing to be coachable. So many of us are like Charles Barkley used to call Allen Iverson, me, myself, and Iverson. Well, hey, it is what it is. If you're not coachable, it's going to affect your ability to be successful. Great as Michael Jordan was, he didn't win until he got Phil Jackson. You're looking at Golden State now. Steph Curry, great player, hard worker. Mark Jackson put a lot of fundamentals in him. Steve Kerr is now reaping the benefits because Steve Kerr played on championship teams with Michael Jordan, the Bulls, and San Antonio, whatever. My point is that no matter who you are, I've had several coaches. Of course, starting with my mom. And as I got older, my dad and I reconciled, and then he became a bit of a coach. But I had the Charleses. I had Dr. Charlie Jenkins, who's like my other dad. He was with me at work for 20 years, stayed on me. He didn't care that I was doing White House stuff. He didn't care about all that stuff. He wanted me to finish and do this PhD thing and do what I'm doing now. And Charles Rogero, his passion was to get me to do the filmmaking stuff and to do what I'm doing right now. He's been wanting me to do this for years. Then my girl, Renamina, she's on me about the same thing. But you know what? We all need coaches. If you're uncoachable, if you can't take criticism, if it's hard for you, you're going to have a hard time in life. But in general, if you can't, I tell my nephew this all the time. Dude, it's not all about you. So many times we're looking at about what we want. What you want and what you need are two different things. And you have to focus on what you need. You know, there's old saying in the church they talk about God gives us what we need. He doesn't say about wants. He talks about needs. There's a reason why. When you get what you want, you get something called extra. Now, for my younger viewers, we know what we talk about. You get extra. Number one, what do I mean by extra? I mean, when you get what you want, you get extra. Because we have a tendency of getting entitled, puffed up, full of pride. When we get what we want all the time, we get spoiled. And that's not helping what you need. The other part about wants is that when you want, you get extra. You get extra people who don't belong in your life, and it's difficult because they're not helping you. When you're trying to get to from A to Z, and you got a whole bunch of B, C, D, E, F, and et cetera in the way, and you got to get rid of them, that's the other thing. Then C, of course, you know, we talk about extra. And then people start acting extra on you, meaning people act out, they start hating on you, they start doing things, and you don't know where it's coming from. Well, you let them in because you got what you wanted. When you get what you wanted, and I'll be giving examples in my own life where, yeah, I got what I wanted, and then I got the extra. Got the whole idea going to Hollywood. Had people working with me. But then came the extra stuff. Then came the stuff that even when they tell you, you're not ready for it because you're not coached up. Now, fortunately, I had Charles Rogero, who worked there for 25 years, who prepared me and said this. He said, you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to make a decision as to whether or not you want to have a family and be this, that, and other, or you're going to do that lifestyle. And now you're going to get that education that you said you were going to finish. I decided to get the education, came back from being bi-coastal because my job took me back and forth producing films. And then what happened is the family went to hell. And then I got sick. And all these things made me re-examine everything, especially after divorce where I got really sick and people took out. I had to realize who was on my team. When I got sick, a whole lot of people didn't visit me. Now, a lot of people didn't know, but you can't let everybody know what's going on with you because that's the problem. Sometimes we make the mistake of telling too many people our personal business. They don't need to know your business. If they can't help you, if they can't help you directly, You need to cut the cord from that and move forward to the people who can. Because otherwise, you're getting advice from people who aren't in the ditch with you. They're not in the trenches. We need people, this is like your offensive line in football. You need people that are in the ditch with you, willing to go through it with you, who are going to spend their time, energy, and resources. You know, it's one thing to talk about somebody, it's one thing to do that, but when you're spending your money, that's when you find out about people for real. When people are spending their hard-earned money supporting you, then you know they're real. It's no games here. It's no, well, we're doing this because now they're putting themselves out there. Because let's face it, most of us don't have wealthy friends. So if they're putting themselves out there for you, that means there's a whole level of caring. And you need that because that means they got as much to lose as you do. If somebody don't have as much to lose as you do, they're not heavily invested, move on. All you're doing is getting conflicting information because the people who don't have skin in the game, they're going to tell you a whole lot of stuff. And that's wonderful. They might even make some good points. But it's a distraction from the people who are in there with you. And this is why you need a coach. You need some people who are mentors, if you will. And unfortunately, you cannot get that from your peers in your old age. So rule number one, get somebody that's older than you, who's doing what you're doing, to help you. Because the folks your age can't help you. They just haven't lived enough life. They haven't, you know, it's like we have a quarterback in Baltimore, Joe Flacco. And sometimes he's been in the league for a minute, but he don't recognize defenses sometimes. And people get mad with him here, but they understand that's that maturation level. Joe got mature for that one playoff run, and then he did it. But then he didn't have the tools. Everything had to be right for him to do that. People don't understand that. In real life, you're not going to have everything going your way. You've got to learn how to persevere. And that's where coaching comes in. So your homework for tonight is going to be to identify at least 2 to 3 folks who you respect. And they're going to have to be able to talk to you in a way that you're not going to like some things they're going to say. They're going to tell you about you. They're going to tell you what you're not doing, and you got to take the criticism. But at the same time, they've got to be able to build you up. It can't be a thing where you're not getting built up. A real coach will tell you, will do the sandwich method. They'll say, okay, they're going to commend you. You do this well. They're going to recommend. These are the changes, and then they're going to commend you again for accepting the challenge. I'm asking each of you to accept the challenge. Gentlemen, we've got to rethink our thoughts on marriage. I don't think this is a woman problem. I think this is a guy problem. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're looking at how the tax code and the economy is built, it's built for married people. So if you're single and trying to win a single life, you are literally cheating yourself out of dollars because most wealth in this country is inherited from people who were married. So dudes, and the sooner you get in the game and find somebody you can work with. See, one of the things I learned from being married for a minute and not being married, it's easier when it's 2 people, especially if the 2 people are educated and they're on the same page or they're working together. No 2 people are going to agree on everything. In fact, you're going to agree half the time. I mean, you're going to agree to disagree half the time. But the point is, if you can work together. And so many times when times get hard, we don't want to communicate. We don't want to do this. And we don't understand one another. There's no empathy. You know, for example, brothers. Let me talk to the brothers for a minute, no matter what your shade is. If you got a year-round tan like me or you don't, here's the point. We have to understand a few things. Women are different from us. Whether you want to admit it or not, from an emotional intelligence level, without doing any studies, I've seen reading any of the studies right now because that's not going to do you any good. You can look around in the classroom and see that the women are doing better than the men. They're more focused. They got a plan, and they may hate the other woman's guts in the group, but they're going to work together to get this project done. Guys, we got all kinds of excuses, gamesmanship, whatever it is, dude. We got to get serious. We got to man up. Because the bottom line is, especially if you're African-American or Latino or whatever, right now, it's a hostile climate in many respects because right now we have a serious problem in this country with, even though it's better in some ways than it's ever been before, it's worse than it's ever been before with race relations. I have a lot of friends who are police officers, I have a lot of friends who are attorneys, and I see both sides of this argument as a brother who's been stopped well over 20 times. I used to have this black Corvette, and I'm telling you, that was a ticket magnet. You want to get it? That thing used to get me. I finally sold it to my cousin Jay, who's a great producer director. But the thing was a great car. But I didn't get to enjoy it as much because I was always for fear of my life being stopped, literally at gunpoint at one time when I was in the city. And thank God, Cardinal Keeler showed up. And I mean, it was like a movie where he shows up, the lights come on, they put their guns down. This really happened. And I know it's a lot of brothers. So women, understand, a lot of brothers out here, you know, we dealing with some things where I'm not saying this with me, but there are a lot of brothers who feel like they're an endangered species and they're targeted. So you have to understand, when you get home or you're in a situation where y'all together and he seems defensive, it's because the only place he has where he can feel like he is a real man is when he's with you. And he doesn't need you attacking him, but he needs you to empathetically listen to what he's saying, understand his point of view. Now, guys, that's not an excuse for you to be abusive, an a-hole, you know, a dick. Hey, I said it. There's no excuse for being a dick. And I got to say it like that because I got your attention, didn't I? The point is that a lot of times what we're having is people just being jerks and not listening to what the woman has to say. She's got feelings. She's got emotions. And, you know, and women go through different things. We don't have to. How about that thing that happens every once a month if they're healthy? We have to acknowledge that and be mindful of the fact that sometimes these things affect what they're going. And we have to listen to what they have to say. I'm guilty of it too, but we got to listen. And then what we've got to do is we've got to repeat back what they said to make sure we got it. And then what we need to do is reach some common ground on some things. But one thing is mutual respect. If it's something you don't like, you should be able to talk to each other and say, how can we work together so this isn't an issue? We've got to get these communication issues down pat, because if folks get married, they're going to make more money, they're going to live longer, they're going to be healthier, happier, the whole 9 yards. It's not happening in too many cases. For example, on one study, my girl was doing something, and we found out that, like, basically for younger black women, we're talking about 48% will never get married. 48%. Now, that's outrageous when you think about that, because, one, guys, we got too many issues. If you think about the guys that don't like women, I'm talking about, in this particular situation, I'm talking about men, women. I'm not as qualified to talk about the other things, so I'm going to leave that somebody else more qualified than me. But specifically men and women, we've got some problems here, and especially in the minority community, because it's affecting our kids. And we also have to look at how we're being programmed. That's for the next message I'm going to talk about, because one of the reasons there's a communications gap is because of the internal programming that we're getting that's coming from external sources. So you can say, I like rap music, I like hip-hop. I do, love it. Here's the problem. Yeah, I like gospel hip-hop, I like all types of music. The problem is you have to pay attention to the lyrics, because the lyrics will affect your subconscious mind if you listen to it enough. I don't care who you are. You cannot control your subconscious mind. So therefore, when there's a trigger, you might hear DMX, y'all gonna make me lose my mind. Or you might hear the F the Police when you're being there. And that's not a good song, by the way, to have when you're being pulled over. So these are the types of things that we need to work on, folks. We've got to work on what we put in us, because what you put in you is not, you know, the good book talks about, it's not what a person puts in, it's what come out of them that defiles them. Bottom line is, whatever you're putting in you will come out, and usually at the worst possible time for you. So we've got to be careful, and we should also demand of, I'm not telling all artists they shouldn't go, you know, have a few gangster things where we looking hard, we feeling hard, stuff like that. But dude, can't y'all do some words that are positive, uplifting, like hip hop originally started? Can't y'all do a couple songs of things? I'm not trying to censor anybody. I'm asking you to take it as solemn duty to step your game up, to encourage folks. And by the way, we're gonna talk about this later. If you're from the hood and you know it's that bad and you got the money, you're an artist, buy your hood back up, because the prices ain't that high. Buy your hood back up and establish it, just like I've seen, like in Baltimore, in Little Italy. You know, I grew up with some Italian friends who own restaurants down there. They bought their hood. Buy your hood. If you're an artist, buy your hood. And then be the change that you want to see. You can't say, or do you just want to stay that way so you can keep doing videos and exploiting it? Dude, buy your hood and make it affordable for the folks who are there to still live there, so there's a culture there. We used to do that. Back in the day, we used to have regular folks with the dollar and the black community all living together, and that was segregation. I'm not advocating segregation. That's a whole other argument for another time, because, you know, my mom and even my old mother-in-law, God rest her soul, used to always talk about, in some ways, that from an education perspective and a financial perspective, that black folks were better off on segregation because we stuck together. Whole nother story, whole nother time. Basically, what I want you to do now, though, the bottom line with this message is, we all have to be coachable. Find a coach or a mentor. I had like 2 or 3 of them. And then you find some for individual cases. Some you'll need for a season. Some you will need pretty much for life. And coaching is so important, because if you're uncoachable, you can't be successful and you will not have maturation. In order to mature, it's about being able to get people who can help you. That means, sorry folks, not your friends. Your friends are for the social things out that. But if they're interfering for your ability to be successful, you got to put them to the side and work with your coach to get what you want. And then you can see them at a reunion, a wedding, or whatever. Bottom line is, it is about you and yours, and you got to focus on that. You don't have time to be partying with other folk if you're trying to be you, because the same money. Well, don't worry, I'm gonna cut this right here because I'll talk about that in the next episode. So for right now, just remember, it's not your environment, but it's you. The quality of your mind, the integrity of your soul, and determination of your will. That is what you are. You are what you aspire to be, and not what you now are. Now, I took that from Benjamin Mays, and I made my own thing from it. So think about that, and we'll see you next episode.